Good evening, I'm Ces Oreña-Drilon.
I'm Pauline Verzosa.
And I'm Shawn Yao.
The big stories tonight. Call him Ombudsman. Outgoing Justice Secretary Boying Remulla is coming into the very powerful post amid a massive flood control scandal. There are also questions on politics getting in the way of his ability to charge, prosecute, and even fire erring government officials.
Now on to another powerful post, the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee. There are 5 possible successors to Senator Ping Lacson, and we tell you about them later on in the program.
And it's been exactly 1 week since a magnitude 6.9 earthquake jolted Cebu. Let's see how the province is rebuilding amid the massive destruction there.
Ang totoo, in-expect ko na kasi talagang wala nang rule of law dito sa ating bansa. Planchado na ang lahat.
Transparency and a lot of action. And probably yun, transparency, more openness from the office. Wala tayong sisinuhin dito.
Well, DOJ Secretary Boying Remulla's appointment as Ombudsman did not come as a surprise at all. Foremost on his agenda, aside from the flood control investigations, is reopening the complaints against Vice President Sara Duterte's alleged misuse of confidential funds. Here's the report.
And so what is obvious to many pundits has come to pass. Justice Secretary Jesus Crispin Boying Remulla is the new ombudsman as appointed by Malacanang. He replaces Samuel Martirez, whose term ended in July and will have the same 7-year tenure. Now that Remulla is, quote, the Tanod Bayan, or the constitutional protector of the nation, he vows to fulfill his duties with full transparency and accountability.
Transparency and a lot of action. And probably yun, transparency, more openness from the office. Yung tao naghahanap talaga ng transparency and accountability sa taong bayan. At nung hiningi ko yung trabahong ito, yun ang sa isip ko talaga na yung accountability mapalakas natin sa lahat. Bukod sa iba pang mga tungkulin na pwede nating gampanan.
When asked what President Marcos's marching orders are, the new ombudsman had this to say.
Sabi niya, yung accountability of public officers, pangalagaan mo talaga. Wala itong sisinuhin. Ang trabaho ng ombudsman para sa buong Pilipinas, hindi sa isang kampo ng politika. Kaya wala tayong sisinuhin dito.
Of course, Remulla wields so much power now. He can charge, prosecute, suspend, and even dismiss officials in government found misbehaving and erring. Remulla can file both administrative and criminal charges against state executives and personnel and is key in the investigation of corruption. Yes, including and particularly the probe into allegedly anomalous flood control projects. Even the Independent Commission for Infrastructure is answerable to him. The ICI is poised to submit to the Ombudsman pieces of evidence it gathered on questionable government-funded projects. Some of these cases may even be elevated to the anti-graft court, Sandigan Bayan, for officials with salary grade 27 or higher and accused of amassing ill-gotten wealth of more than 50 million pesos. Another complaint Remulla is going to resolve, that one against Vice President Sara Duterte for alleged misuse of more than 600 million pesos in confidential funds.
Nandiyan na yan eh. Actually, nandiyan na naman sa ombudsman ang mga report na yan. At bubuklatin natin. Pag-aaralan at tatanungin natin yung mga may hawak doon ngayon. Mga may hawak at yung may tungkulin na hawakan ng mga kasong yon bago tayo dumating.
Remulla says he also wants lifestyle check on officials and making public their salins or statement of assets, liabilities, and net worth. Meantime, Malacanang was quick to defend their choice of ombudsman.
We have the highest confidence in Secretary Remulla. I wouldn't say that he's the most controversial. As I said, there is a vetting process which is provided for by our constitution and our laws, and he went through that very rigorous process. At the end of the day, after the president receives the recommendation from the JVC, it's still the decision of the president.
Remulla is scheduled to take his oath as ombudsman on Thursday. It wasn't an easy climb for Boying. The president's sister, Senator Amy Marcos, filed complaints against him for the ICC arrest of former President Rodrigo Duterte. All those dismissed.
Kasi nag-tumbling ang ombudsman, tumbling para i-dismiss yung mga kaso. Dismiss kaagad, lahat baseless. Pagkatapos mag-issue ng clearance, talagang kinakana ng todo-todo.
For Senator Marcos, Vice President Sara Duterte is next on the new ombudsman's agenda.
Mukhang planchadong-planchado na. Kung hindi makakalusot yung impeachment, nako hay, ang plan B, diretso na tayo sa plan C. Planchado na ang lahat.
This is something the palace dismissed as well.
There's always a process and a very stringent process required under our constitution, and then Secretary Remulla went through that process, no, and he was vetted by the JBC and appointed by the president. So I don't believe there is basis to that concern. At the end of the day, after the president receives the recommendation from the JBC, it's still the decision of the president.
For its part, the Liberal Party implores Remulla to, quote, pursue corruption wherever it hides. They said they, along with the people, will be watching his every action.
Now let's get some insights on this latest development and other issues. And joining us is ACT Teachers Party List Representative Antonio Tino. Welcome to the Big Story, Congressman.
Hi, good evening, Ces, Shawn, and Pauline, and good evening to everyone.
Do you welcome the appointment of the former Justice Secretary as the new ombudsman?
Well, we welcome the appointment of an ombudsman because the post has been vacant or held in an acting capacity for many months. And that has been particularly felt during this whole flood control corruption scandal, where the ombudsman is, practically on the sidelines because there is no full-fledged ombudsman.
What do you see should his first task be to gain the confidence of not just the public, but also, for instance, the progressive group?
Well, the first task, the immediate task, is to rescind the former ombudsman's memorandum circular number 1 from 2020, which severely restricted, practically denied the public access to the SALNs, statements of assets, liabilities, and net worth of public officials. No, that was the handiwork of the previous ombudsman, that practically restricted access to only someone with a court order. No, pwede ka lang makahingi ng kopya ng opisyal if there was actually a court order. So it became next to impossible to gain access to the constitutionally mandated by the law. The ombudsman is supposed to to receive a copy of all the SALNs of the officials of government, including the highest officials, and to make the SALNs available for inspection by anyone, by any citizen during office hours. That's in the law, but that circular was issued by Martires, and I think that is an important factor to consider in why the ombudsman was practically neutered during from the time of the previous administration up to now. And this also happens to be the time period when this massive abuse and plunder of public works funds took place.
The incoming ombudsman did say that in his press conference, but with certain conditions and certain limitations.
Well, there we go again. No? The mandate of the law is clear that it should be made available for inspection. We understand that some information, personal in nature, may be perhaps redacted, but nevertheless, access should not be limited.
Okay. Now, with respect to going after airing officials, kaya ni incoming ombudsman ang kahit na kaalyado nila?
Well, that is the
Marcos
challenge.
Administration.
Opo, that is the challenge, because obviously Remulla is very closely associated with the president. I mean, the Remulla family have been allies of the Marcoses, the Marcos dynasty, since even the time of Marcos Sr. He served as Justice Secretary for the past 3 years. And the secretary is, of course, considered as the alter ego of the president. So, meron ng impression or bagahe ngayon ang ombudsman na partisan. No? So, the challenge is to show that he will pursue the investigation, prosecution, and conviction of all involved in flood control, corruption, or plunder, regardless of political color. No? Yung sabi nga, sa mga rally, lahat ng sangkot dapat managot. So that falls heavily on the ombudsman. Yun ang hamon kay Ombudsman Remulla.
Congressman, earlier when Ces asked you, are you happy about Boying Remulla being the new ombudsman? You said, I'm happy that there finally is an ombudsman. Just to make it clear, who amongst the shortlist, the 7 names on the shortlist, were you pretty much resigned to the fact that it would be Boying Remulla? Or was there someone else that the progressive groups were eyeing? Sana, ganon.
I mean, ultimately, it's the president's choice. No? But, I mean, there were many other qualified names. I'm not saying one or the other should have been the ombudsman, but off the top of my head, I can remember Michael Aguinaldo was among the those who applied for the position. He used to be COA chair, no, under the Duterte administration. He did a good job. I mean, there were many qualified. No, so in other words, the president could have made a less partisan choice, no, but instead, because he chose Remulla, then the ombudsman has to contend with that perception that the choice was made, you know, with partisan intent, no, that will the ombudsman really pursue all involved in corruption, or only those selected or curated by the administration?
Having said that, Congressman, there are 2 big things that, if you look on social media, it's 2 things, right? Some are banking on the ombudsman to, you know, do something about these flood control, the erring people, all the erring people involved in the flood control mess, or continue and take up the cudgels and, kumbaga, motu proprio, investigate VP Sara and, you know, open up her bank accounts and all of that. Which would you want to see prioritized between the 2 issues?
I mean, the ombudsman has to take on both. Has to make substantial and decisive actions on both issues, because these are the flood control issue is massive, perhaps one of the biggest corruption scandals in our history, and you know, we really see and feel how the lack of action of the Office of the Ombudsman, what is the result of that? No, I mean, if the Ombudsman was doing its job, then it should have been able to monitor and flag and do motu proprio investigations on the, you know, the outrageously lavish lifestyles of DPWH officials. No, they lost, you know, losing hundreds of millions of pesos in casinos and so on and so forth. Imposible namang hindi makakarating sa ombudsman yan kung aktibo niyang ginagawa yung trabaho niya. As to and that has been going on for years, no? So ilang taon lumalabas na from the Duterte administration to the present, diyan talaga yung yung height nung abuse ng flood control. Tapos as to the issues with the vice president, again, ilang taon na rin ito. no, and the public wants answers on the issue of the use, accountability on the abuse of confidential funds. For now, barado yung impeachment. So, nandyan yung avenue ng ombudsman, especially since the vice president is not immune from suit. So, hindi lang impeachment ang pwedeng mechanism for holding the vice president accountable.
Well, Congressman, still on the topic of the flood control mess, are you happy with the progress that the ICI is making? Because some think they're too slow, some think they lack transparency. And you were also quoted as saying you believe that President Marcos is not absolved from any of this. You actually believe he's also complicit because he bears command responsibility.
Well, commander responsibility, and particularly in the case of unprogrammed appropriations, the law itself, both the special provision in the General Appropriations Act, as well as the Administrative Code, explicitly provides that it is only the president that approves the use of lump sum funds like unprogrammed appropriations. No, the law itself says, Presidente ang responsable para sa anumang gamit ng unprogrammed appropriations. And under his presidency from 2023 to 2024, a massive 214 billion pesos worth of additional flood control projects and other infrastructure projects were approved and funded. And many of these projects are now, under scrutiny and involved or mentioned in for example, the alleged projects of Senator Villanueva that was supposedly funded from unprogrammed appropriations. The president is responsible for that according to the law. So meron pananagutan ng presidente, and so the ICI should also take this into account in doing its work. Now, are we satisfied with the work of the ICI? Frankly, because it's not transparent, we can't really say.
Yeah.
No?
Are you joining the calls for more transparency, for their hearings to be made public?
Certainly. For all of the limitations of the House investigation, the Infracom, as well as the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee, one important thing was that all of their proceedings were public, and that's an important and essential factor in educating the public about the extent, the details of the plunder, paano ninanakaw, basically yung pondo ng taong bayan mismo. So ganun kahalaga yung transparency. Kaya nga ngayon, what we have now, the House stopped its hearings, the Senate apparently is in limbo, and it's not medyo hindi maganda yung nangyari sa Senate because now parang tumigil sila because Senator Lacson intimated to the public that almost all senators had amendments or insertions, including flood control projects, in the 2025 budget. Tapos dahil lang doon, tigil na ba tayo? Dahil matatamaan na pati yung hanay ng mga senador.
Congressman, I'd like to ask you this. While Senator Cayetano's proposal for snap elections was shut down, there's no provision in the Constitution that allows this, but there are calls in social media for the Senate and the House to be abolished. This is how the public really is so fed up with, it seems everybody had their hand in the honey pot, in the cookie jar. Yeah.
Well, kahit nga sinut down dahil walang basis and so on, or nakaka-distract ito from the immediate objective of investigating and holding accountable those involved. However, it does articulate or resonate with yung sinabi mo, yung publiko talaga may pagtingin na grabe. buong lahat ay may involvement, no? Lahat sangkot from the highest, from Malacanang itself, the Senate, the House, the DPWH bureaucracy, yung ombudsman being, not doing its job, pati yung COA involved, di ba? So lahat in one way or other, involved, basta may infrastructure project. No? So talagang naintindihan natin yung panawagan na baka kailangan, hindi ubra dito, kahit pa sa totoo lang, kahit pa may makulong, pero kung hindi naman babaguhin yung sistema, ay babalik at mas malala. This is already the lesson from the Napoles pork barrel scam. Yes, may mga nakundik, nakakulong pa si Napoles. May mga senador na nakundik. Eventually, alam natin, yung mga iba dyan, nakalaya na. Pero, nawala ba yung corruption? Again, pork-related, pork barrel yon. In fact, ang nangyari, from the PDAF, which was visible, kita, na tinransform into an invisible system of pork barrel allocations dahil invisible na lumaki na lumaki. No? So yung legislators may pork, yung president may pork, ang tawag diyan ngayon ang programmed appropriations, and this is what we have today.
So anong solusyon? Abolish
Well,
na.
I mean, in the end, you have to abolish this whole pork barrel system. No, but that's how politics currently works. No, bakit ba yung pag may presidente ka, all of a sudden may supermajority ka agad kahit yung mga dating hindi ka partido. It's all because of pork, di ba? Oh.
Kumustahin ko lang sana very quickly, ano po nangyari sa budget ni VP Sara? Did Congress somehow agree na to cut it, or because she didn't show up?
The discussions are still ongoing. Sa Friday pa yung schedule ng plenary deliberations on amendments. So ongoing ngayon yung mga usapin dyan. She did not show up, and let me just clarify na it's not because she prioritized going to Cebu to help the earthquake victims. It was because she laid certain unreasonable and impossible conditions before she could attend. Sabi niya sa Kongreso, either papuntahin nyo rin sa budget hearing ng presidente, or i-lift down ng DOJ yung immigration lookout bulletin order against some of her staff, no, in relation to the confidential funds issue. In the first place, bakit nag-impose ng mga kondisyon samantalang tungkulin ng sino mang opisyal na ipagtanggol ang budget sa Kongreso dahil humihingi siya ng pondo mula sa taong bayan ultimately. No, so ngayon hindi talaga umattend. So ayan, pag-usapan ngayon ng Kongreso, ng House in particular, kung anong gagawin. I made a particular proposal na tanggalin yung budget except for yung pangsweldo. No, dahil yun ang bare minimum na pwedeng ibigay, and also taking into consideration yung mga rights ng employees ng Office of the Vice President. However, siguro by Friday pa mapipirme kung anong gagawin ng House.
Malaki-laki yung gusto nyong itapyas, from 902 million down to 198 million. That's about a 700 million reduction. Which functions of the OVP do you believe should be defunded?
Well, in my proposal, the offices will be practically shut down. But this is not, let me emphasize, hindi dahil sa action ng Kongreso yan, kundi sa action ng Vice Presidente. Dahil ayaw naman niyang ipaliwanag ang budget ng kanyang opisina. No? So, it's on her. No, it's not on Congress if ever mabawasan yung budget.
Pero pwede naman idagdag ulit sa Senado.
Malamang, given yung composition, malamang ganun ang mangyayari. No? Pero the point is, I think Congress, at least the House, has to take a stand na wala dapat exceptions when it comes to budget hearings and an executive agency justifying its budget request.
All right, we thank you for talking to us. That was Congressman Antonio Tino of ACT Teachers Party List. Now moving on, the Independent Commission for Infrastructure, or ICI, has recommended the filing of criminal and administrative charges against several people. That's at the Office of the Ombudsman, pre-Boying Remulla. ICI wants charge former Congressman Zaldi Co along with executives of SunWest Construction, a company Co himself founded. That's for the violation of the Anti-Graft and Corrupt Practices Act, malversation of public funds in relation to falsification of public documents, and breaches of the Government Procurement Reform Act. The ICI also endorsed administrative charges against the same personalities for alleged violation of the Code of Conduct for Public Officials and the Civil Service Rules and Regulations. Meantime, Senator Mark Villar has appeared before the ICI as a resource person in the fact-finding body's ongoing inquiry into the flood control scam. Villar, who served as Public Works Secretary from 2016 to 2021, clarified he did not appoint former Bulacan 1st District Engineer Henry Alcantara, though the latter was promoted during his term.
So he is organic sa Department of Public Works. Okay.
Senator Villar was also questioned about his ties to a Las Piñas-based contractor. Villar confirmed that the contractor, Carlo Aguilar, is his cousin, but stressed that Aguilar's firm only secured contracts after he had already left office as Public Works Chief. The ICI said they have gathered substantial information from Villar's testimony, adding that he is no longer required to return for another hearing.
It went well. The senator just explained the processes he applied or he used during the time that he was DPWH Secretary with regard to how he managed the department.
Now, also in today's ICI interviews, contractor couple Curly and Sara Discaya were also invited. However, the hearing was once again deferred after they requested 7 more days to present additional documents, which the commission did not specify. The Discayas are set to return on October 15. Tomorrow, former DPWH Undersecretary Roberto Bernardo is expected to face the commission once again following his initial appearance last week. As this developed, Iglesia Ni Cristo Executive Minister Eduardo Manalo has urged that the ICI investigation be open to the public. He also wants the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee to continue its hearings on flood control anomalies. INC spokesperson Edwil Zabala quoted Manalo as saying, "The public deserves a transparent and credible process that will hold accountable those behind the alleged theft of billions in public funds." The statement went on to say, quote, "Like many Filipinos, we are waiting not only for the results, but also for how these proceedings will be carried out without doubt or bias."
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has 33 months left in his term, and in his latest podcast, the chief executive was asked about what would be his priorities in the final stretch of his presidency. Apart from his anti-corruption campaign, Marcos says he wants to use his remaining time to work on securing enduring social programs for the people.
I'll just say what are the directions I want to go towards in the time remaining. First of all, the social programs are important.
Mm-hmm.
People have to have a good healthcare system. People have to have food to eat.
Yeah.
People have to have shelter as much as possible. People have to have. They must be able to survive. Ganun lang. Let's just start there.
Now, aside from healthcare, food, and shelter, Marcos Jr. says he intends to follow this through with an education sector that can ensure a successful society in the future.
Putting a great deal of my attention and the government's focus on education. That is the most important thing that you can do. You cannot have a successful society without a well-educated society. Remember when we were the best English speakers?
Yeah.
In Asia, we had the highest literacy rate in Asia. Let's get back there. We need to get back there.
During the podcast, the chief executive was also asked who he would like to do a one-on-one interview with. He chose his namesake and father, the former President Ferdinand Marcos Sr.
How would he judge what you just did? Anak, mali yan. O anak, very good. Or whatever, you know. So the the one thing since I became president, sometimes I hear in the back of my mind, it's like my father and some of his other political allies, yung sa generation niya. Oh, mahirap ano.
But you knew
Parang
that.
narinig
You
mo.
knew.
We're just going to take a quick break, but coming up, who among Senators Ontiveros, Ejercito, Cayetano, Tulfo, and Pangilinan will succeed Ping Lacson as Blue Ribbon Committee Chairman? That story and more when we return. Keep it here on One News.
You're watching the big story here on One News. Who will replace Senator Ping Lacson as Blue Ribbon Committee Chairman? Senate President Tito Soto floated 5 contenders from the majority bloc. They are Senators J.V. Ejercito, Rafi Tulfo, Kiko Pangilinan, Pia Cayetano, and Risa Ontiveros. Cayetano briefly led the Blue Ribbon during the 19th Congress, while Ontiveros was a top contender for the position before Lacson, but she declined. Of the 5 senators floated, only Pangilinan and Cayetano are lawyers. Soto, however, said this is not a requirement or an edge, and he will still talk to the 5. But this early, 2 candidates have declined to lead the anti-corruption panel. In a statement, Rafi Tulfo said he was flattered for being considered, but also indicated he would decline. Tulfo already has 3 committee chairmanships. Ejercito, for his part, said there are other senators who can lead the committee better.
Una-una, papasalamat ako sa tiwala sa at for considering me for such a very important committee, Blue Ribbon. No? Kaya lang, alam ko limitasyon ko, mas marami ang tingin kong mas may kakayanan ang mag-lead ng committee.
Soto said the next Blue Ribbon chairman may be named tomorrow after the scheduled majority caucus. Several senators are still hoping Lacson may still change his mind about resigning, but Lacson says his decision to step down is final.
Sir, may mga gustong mag-reconsider. Sir, may mga gustong mag-reconsider po kayo sa Blue Ribbon Committee Chairmanship.
When I say no, it's no. When I say yes, it's yes.
Sir, may recommendation po kayo. So wala na, sir.
So final answer na no.
A temporary fix that fails to address the deep-rooted issues of governance and corruption. That is how the Makati Business Club views the proposal for snap elections. And let's discuss this now, along with other issues, with MBC's Executive Director, Rafael. Wow, Rafael. Who calls you Rafael? Apa Ongpin,
my
thank
mother.
you. When she's angry. Thank you for coming to the show. While it's not a solution, you know, it resonates with the public in a sense that they want now the Senate and the House abolished. There have been sentiments on social media.
First of all, it's not a solution. Okay? It's actually another problem.
Yeah.
Right? You're replacing one problem with another.
Yeah.
Secondly, I mean, so what if you replace the people, if the systems are themselves still rotten?
Right.
Diba? We believe in reform of the system, and we have quoted, concrete steps that we can take. We have to pass a freedom of information law. We have to look at the bank secrecy law in relation to, the public officials and so on, and all of these other things.
Dynasties.
The dynasties. That's another discussion. Okay, dynasties do not cause corruption. All right.
What do you mean?
Well,
they control economic power in their fiefdoms.
Yes, they do, but there are some dynasties that are actually quite progressive and have a lot of integrity. All right.
Care to share who?
You like who?
Let's name drop. No. We can't name drop.
I just want to say, it's a knee-jerk reaction to say we are asking for an anti-dynasty law because it's required by the Constitution, right? But in itself, removing dynasties is not a solution to the corruption problem.
Okay, and you did kind of disagree, for lack of a better term, with Alan Peter Cayetano's suggestion to hold snap elections. But I guess what we should take there is the fact that maybe we do need a reset, right? Which is just what you said. So apart from the FOI coming back and the bank secrecy law not being applicable to maybe elected officials, what other concrete steps is the MBC looking at?
Well, it's a long list, all of these different laws that we're sponsoring. And a lot of it has to do with, you know, what we have termed ease of doing business, right? But it's actually anti-corruption, okay? Because that's what the Ease of Doing Business initiative is all about. It's to try to make corruption more difficult, at least, if not impossible. And a lot of this is digitization, right? And we have to look at procurement, government procurement. I don't think the government procurement law in itself is necessarily that flawed. It's actually more the implementing rules and regulations, maybe, that we could review.
Reduction of human intervention in the process.
Yes, exactly.
In the system.
That's what digitalization is, right? Now, you know, you have things like in the infrastructure sector, right? The biddings are cooked, right? And they're cooked in many ways. One of the ways is the terms of reference, okay? The terms of reference are arranged so that only certain contractors will qualify.
You know, time was when contractors who did government work were the A1, the big ones. Well, now, parang mga hausyaw na lang.
They won't, these guys, you know,
nobody,
sort of DM Consunhi, First Balfour, you know, mga EEI, Megawide, even FF Cruz from before. You know, these guys, they won't touch it. Kasi sindikato yan eh. No? So, I mean, they're not being moralistic or anything. It's just that they don't want to get involved with this corruption game. That's not what they're about.
But
right?
going back to very quickly on the digitization, because we had Blockchain Council head Donald Lim here, and of course we've all heard about the proposal that blockchain could possibly cure all. Donald did say, though, that we need to digitize first before we can even look at blockchain, right? So are you for that too, like that whole putting the whole government on blockchain?
Yeah, we've Makati Business Club has supported that measure, but as you said, it's not a magic wand, at all. It is one tool that we can use, and it's a tool that can only follow digitalization.
Is the MBC also echoing calls that are getting louder now for the ICI to be more transparent, to open to the public their hearings?
Yes, we co-signed the statement of the Budget Watch and so on groups. The other groups, we believe that they have to be transparent.
Open their hearings.
Freedom of information, right? I don't think there's a very good reason why they're not open to the public.
Well, yesterday, President Marcos in the Philippine Development Forum guaranteed foreign aid and loan providers that his administration will not tolerate the wastage of public funds. Yeah. A bold statement is one thing, but following through on that promise is a whole nother topic. And based on your conversations and based on your experience, how sensitive are foreign investors when it comes to issues such as widespread corruption in a country like ours?
Well, let's talk about foreign aid, right? Foreign aid is, of course, somewhat sensitive. If JICA or the Asian Development Bank is lending you a few billion pesos to build something, like a subway, they don't want any part of that going to corruption, right? And, a lot of that also has to do with the counterpart funding, of the Philippine government.
Which for a while stopped.
Because it was defunded in the 2025 budget in favor of these pork
Unprogrammed,
barrel
yeah.
infrastructure
Yes.
projects.
So
Right?
that's a concern.
It's a huge concern.
That's why, are you not feeling the impact in the business sector of this, I guess,
It's
loss
not
of
like-
confidence in our...
It's not like there's a rushing torrent of foreign investment, raining on
Already.
our heads, right? No, we're not.
So all the more nga, all the more that
It
you
makes
were-
us even more uncompetitive.
Yeah.
Already we're uncompetitive in so many ways, but it is really a crisis that will impact us economically.
Well, the U.S. State Department just flagged us. It just came out today in the papers. Flagged the Philippines for pervasive corruption, quote unquote.
Yeah, well, fair enough, right? I mean, when you have something like 50% of the, of the budget devoted to pork barrel infrastructure projects, and I have to say, there's a lot of very important, worthwhile infrastructure, including flood control projects, that get mixed into this, right? So not all infrastructure is bad. And by the same token, not all budget insertions are bad, okay? I mean, it's
You
really...
mean amendments?
Yeah. Yeah, well, amendments, whatever you call it. But, we have to be very, very discerning and very, very selective about, what we are investigating right now.
So, but your wish list, the Makati Business Club's wish list takes time. These reforms take time.
Yeah.
So what do you want done immediately, or before the end of the year at least?
Well, we want the ICI to come up with, we want a few heads to roll. That's just purely emotional, but we feel that the people have demanded it, right? And we want to see some big fish. No?
Do you
Like
think
all of
President
us.
Marcos is displaying enough political will to actually see this fight against corruption through?
Yeah, I think he is.
He's sincere when he says that heads will roll, and when he says walang
Including his
sasantuin.
allies, huh?
Yeah, including his allies.
Possibly his cousin.
Yeah, I mean, if they're going to throw that guy under the bus, good. Diba?
But how does MBC feel now? Because it seems like nobody wants to throw nobody under the bus anymore.
Well,
right?
no. I mean, let's not be too hasty, right? Let's see what the ICI comes up with, right? But it's a huge problem. Sabi ni Vince Dizon sa DPWH, no? Sabi niya, if I fired everybody in DPWH na may sabit, sabi niya,
Walang
matitira. Walang matitira. These are things to be considered, right? These are things to be considered. You really have to play this well. Otherwise, you're gonna disrupt governance.
All right. We thank you so much for coming to the show.
Thank you for having
Thank you.
me.
That was the Makati Business Club Executive Director, Apa Ongpin.
All right, let's move on now and check in on the weather. The low-pressure area Pag-asa has been monitoring outside the Philippine area of responsibility has strengthened into a tropical depression. Its last recorded location is more than 2,000 kilometers east of central Luzon, and it is quickly moving northwestward. However, that is not really going to affect our weather. The southwest monsoon winds, or habagat, are officially gone. They are now replaced by the northeasterly wind flow, which Pag-asa considers as the transition toward the northeast monsoon or amihan season. Right now, this northeasterly wind flow is going to bring moderate to at times heavy rainfall over Luzon, especially in the Bicol region and Quezon, while there is also an ITCZ or Intertropical Convergence Zone that could cause incessant rains to fall over the Visayas, Mindanao, and Palawan.
And it's exactly a week since a magnitude 6.9 quake struck Cebu. How's the province holding up now? Let's get updates from One News Cebu's Dale Israel. Dale, the Cebu provincial government is launching hashtag Kumbati Cebu Task Force. Tell us more about this recovery and rehabilitation initiative. Well, and the funding is 200 million pesos.
Mayong gabi, says 1 week nga after the deadly earthquake that struck northern Cebu, this provincial government has now set this target date also for the complete recovery and rehabilitation of affected areas. The initiative called Kumbati Cebu promises a full restoration of infrastructure and livelihood by June of 2026, or about 8 months from now. This is according to Aldwin Impases, the Assistant Provincial Administrator designated to speak about the rehabilitation efforts. Impases said that this is the long-term plan, but for now, the priority is still relief operations. Kumbati, says, is a Cebuano word which practically meant to keep on fighting or never give up, which also describes the resilience of northern Cebu residents, which was also devastated by Typhoon Yolanda in 2013. The provincial government claims also that they have already reached all devastated areas, including remote upland barangays and small island communities. Back to you, Ces.
Apologies for my bad Cebuano, Kumbati. Tama?
Tama, Kumbati.
Okay. Now, yung challenges to the delivery of assistance to victims, have those been addressed?
Yes, the Emergency Operations Center in the Cebu capital authorities provided this latest status report nga of the delivery of the relief goods after the quake. Right now, so as they have already reached a lot of areas, or they said that they have practically reached everyone and every area that was devastated by the quake last Tuesday. So right now, the provincial government is sending water tankers still to the areas in Tabogon, which is still do not have water supply. That's the only area now that has no water supply. And in the towns of San Remigio, Medellin, Tabuelan, and Dalmantayan, water service has been restored, while Bugo City, the epicenter, says only has 60% of the supply is back. For electricity, power has been also restored also in most towns except for some areas in San Remigio. Telecommunications in northern Cebu are also now stable, with signals restored from the country's 3 major telcos. And as for housing, their record shows that there are 4,703 homes that were totally destroyed, and about half of them located in San Remigio. Authorities also reported 23 sinkholes that have appeared mostly in San Remigio and Medellin. Says.
Well, Dale, based on your report, kulang ang 200 million na initial funding para sa Kumbati.
Tama. The provincial government has actually estimated around 3 billion pesos on an infrastructure damage brought about by the quake last Tuesday. And right now, there's still aftershocks, and they are still also conducting this assessment for more infrastructure that were damaged. And they believe that the amount of 3 billion could still rise in the coming days. Says.
Well, thank you for the updates. That was Dale Israel of One News Cebu.
All right, and now we head on to the day's business story, starting with the latest on consumer prices. Headline inflation in September quickened to 1.7%, marking a second straight month of acceleration from the 1.5% in August. The Philippine Statistics Authority said the uptick was driven mainly by higher fuel and vegetable prices, which pushed the 2025 year-to-date average also to 1.7%. That's still below the government's 2 to 4% annual target range. And in corporate news, Metro Pacific Tollways Corporation is planning to raise up to 20 billion pesos through a bond issuance to fund ongoing tollway projects and refinance existing loan facilities. The company said the offering will consist of 15 billion pesos in fixed-rate bonds with an oversubscription option of up to 5 billion pesos under tenors of 3, 5, and 10 years. It also said proceeds from the offer will be used to partially finance the Cavitex, Calax, and LX projects, as well as to settle bridge loans and general expenses. The offer period is targeted to run from November 17 to 21, while the bonds are expected to be issued and listed on the Philippine Dealing and Exchange Corporation on December 2. And the Philippine Embassy in Norway has sought a meeting with the Norwegian Foreign Ministry after a foreign exchange center refused to serve Filipinos, citing money laundering concerns. The incident was first reported by One News host Gretchen Ho, who said her relatives were denied service at Gardermoen Airport in Oslo, where they tried to exchange $300 US. Philippine Ambassador Enrico Foss said he was surprised by the report and wants clarification if such policy exists. In a follow-up post, Ho noted that the Philippines had earlier been placed on the Financial Action Task Force Gray List, a global watchdog for countries with money laundering risks. The country was removed from the list just this February, but it remains unclear whether the refusal stemmed from outdated references or local policy, though several netizens claim they have also experienced similar incidents.
Now we shift gears over to our big picture tonight. It is back-to-back surprises for all of us Swifties here on The Big Story and beyond. Taylor Swift's music video for her newest single, The Fate of Ophelia, drops. The burlesque theme video gave us the visuals as usual, with Taylor flaunting her dance moves once again. That cinematic video, which Taylor directed herself, had almost 8 million views in less than 10 hours. The Fate of Ophelia is the lead single and the opening track off of her 12th studio album, The Life of a Showgirl, which was released on Friday. And there are 11 other showgirl tracks to listen to, including the title track, which features pop sweetheart Sabrina Carpenter.
Inspired daw by another Taylor, Liz Taylor.
Pero yung si Ophelia naman, she was talking about, you know, Hamlet and Ophelia. Because Shakespeare has always been on, I know that Pawi knows this already.
No, actually, I don't. I'm sorry. I'm not a Swiftie.
Mas Swiftie ka!
Swiftie ba? I was gonna say, wow, you're so updated. And
you know, last night, in the middle of all this flood control mess, I decided to click Taylor Swift podcast.
Oh.
Oo, nag-guest siya sa isang podcast sa UK. So, ang dami kong nakuha. Feeling learned.
But I know she's engaged, so
yeah, she also showed her rock
nung news, But yeah, congratulations to Taylor Swift
and
Travis Kelce.
But I like her her other single that dropped, Opalite. It's fun and like happy.
Taylor Swift songs
Have
are
you
always
listened to
very
it?
Nice. I haven't. I've been listening to all the hearings.
The ultimate Swiftie pala.
Oo pala yun. Yun yung pinagpuyatan ko kagabi. Pang pa-good vibes lang.
Oy, pero grabe yung sa Oslo, Norway, exchanging money. You just went to Europe. Did you experience?
No, not at all.
That's pretty odd,
That's
right?
awful, di ba? But the first thing you want to do in the airport is get a few
cash.
Local currency. And then pagbabawalan ka, paano na?
Nakita ko nga yung post ni Gretchen, ang dami na nag-comment na I was there as far back as 2023. Someone claimed na the same thing happened din sa airport.
Yeah, it's not good for our reputation as a nation. Di ba?
Parang nadadamay tayong lahat.
Ang lahat tayo talaga.
$300 lang naman yung gusto nila ibigay.
Oo nga.
Para namang naging criminal agad, na money laundering agad.
The corruption of our officials reflect on us, the ordinary citizens, when we go out.
And we suffer for it.
Yeah.
Just like banks now, di ba, bawal na mag-withdraw ng 500,000 pesos in cash.
Correct.
Okay, but that's all the time that we have this Tuesday. Thank you so much for watching The Big Story.
Kapatid, we are One News, all sides, all the time.
We'll be back here tomorrow at 7:30. Have a good night, everyone.